I think a lot of people that are on this path get confused when they are suddenly becoming more intimidating to other people, and they don't quite understand why. And they're an enigma themselves on why they're an enigma to other people. But you know, in the Bible it says that God's chosen people are a peculiar people, and this needs to be taken to heart and to be taken with great consideration, because when you start to become more whole, okay, you know that you're not a holy person, but you're a whole person. You now start to act in ways that, well, you're going to say what you want, you're going to be what you want, and it's going to be on your terms. And there's nothing really wrong with that. And the problem is, though, is that I've noticed that a lot of people want to not be intimidating when it comes to being around other people. We were talking about this in the Regal Change Academy Regal Assembly call the other day, and somebody brought up the question of, well, do you want to be respected or feared or intimidated or whatever the case was? And I would say that it's better to be both revered, respected, and a little bit feared. And it's not always going to be the case that you need to be, like, you want people fearful around you, but it's like, you're still an animal. You still have teeth. You can still screw up some people's, you're still capable of dangerous things. Let's just say that. And, I think it's the hippie Jesus that a lot of Christians want to have subconsciously implemented into their lives, like, because we've been sold a lie from the churches a lot of the times with this hippie Jesus. Jesus was not a hippie, okay? He threw the tables, he whipped people, like, he was definitely a man's man. He was a carpenter, which is very ironic for God to be a carpenter, right? But actually it's not ironic at all. It actually makes a lot of sense. But I think that we have this image of what Jesus and who Jesus was and what he's supposed to be like. And if you ask the average person, even that's never read the Bible, what exactly kind of a person do you think Jesus was? Whether or not he was real, it doesn't matter, because a lot of these people are atheists, right? But it's like, what kind of person do you think Jesus was when he walked the earth? And as he is in this day in memory, like, what do you think he was like? Most of the time, these people would say something along the lines of, oh, well, he was kind, he was compassionate, he was loving, all of these things, right? But they don't tell you that he stood up to hypocrites. They don't tell you that he was secretly, like, not even secretly, he was openly a revolutionary badass. It's just the way that he was and the way that he is. He didn't care about the Pharisees. He didn't care about the religious whatever, because they knew who he was, and they didn't want to have their authority, like, they didn't want to have him be their authority, because they knew that if it was true that he was the Messiah, he would have the authority. Why do you think saying the name around like Jesus around certain people pisses them off? It's because the demons inside them know that Jesus has the authority, but you don't really get to do much. Like they don't really get to do much about it, and you don't have much of a say. So this quality of being an enigma, given this context and background of Jesus, if we're striving to be like godly people here, I don't understand why it's challenging to accept that you're an enigma sometimes. Like there's nothing that could be more encouraging than you to be misunderstood sometimes. And I know that sounds weird to say, but it's very true. The fact that like you are not relating to people that have ordinary lives that are so ordinary that they could be NPCs. And I'm not trying to be derogatory here, I'm just speaking plainly. The fact that this is the case, the fact that you see the truth, you live the truth, and you want to relate to people that are living in falsehoods. Think about that for a second. Why do you want to connect with people and relate to people that have no understanding of who they are and what they're about and what they're here to be and what they're here to do? They don't even know what they want. They don't even know who they are. Why in the world would you want to relate to these people? And again, it's not about being rude or arrogant here. It's just, that's the way that it is. I don't really care to relate to many people anymore. It's not that I cannot relate to people. In fact, more people find themselves able to relate to me than I am to them at this point. And it's not hard for me to relate to other people because I can just be myself. I don't have to be somebody that I'm not to try to get to somewhere where I don't need to be. I don't need to impress people that are not worth impressing, because the only person that I'm trying to really impress in this life is God himself. God made me to do something. I know he did. I don't need to believe about this anymore. I don't need to really, like, yes, faith is going to be tried and tested and true, but I've lived in the truth long enough to where I know what it's like to not have God. And as difficult as this path and as misunderstanding of a person that you may be, as enigmatic as you may be to other people, where they don't understand you, but God does. Do you know, like, do you really know God? And does God know you? Because if so, then you wouldn't care, I don't think. I don't think so. I don't think you would care about what these other people thought of you. Because with all due respect, screw everybody. Screw them. Like, I'm not trying to be rude here. I'm feeling very feisty today, I suppose. I'm not trying to be feisty, but at the same time, it's like some boundaries need to be set here. And what's crazy is sometimes we can speak so directly to other people and still get misunderstood. That's what's so crazy sometimes, is where you can speak just so plainly. And it's like they try to like imagine that you're this puzzle. They're like, oh, he said this, so he must have meant that. It's like, no, I meant what I said. I mean what I say. I do what I'm saying I'm going to do. I keep my promises, and I don't make promises that I don't know that I can't keep. Life really doesn't need to be that hard. I think that the dizziness of freedom, as Soren Kierkegaard calls it, when it comes to anxiety, because that's what anxiety is the dizziness of freedom, according to Soren Kierkegaard. The anxiety that people feel is because also they don't know how to incorporate conscientiousness and industriousness in their life. Their openness to experience goes up, but they can't harness the ability to be plainly. Because that can really only happen when you're with God. That can really only happen when you're aligned with God. When you know you're aligned with God, there's like no better feeling in the world. Sure, it's not like the most euphoric, but it's the most peaceful, tranquil feeling of just being at one with the Lord. And when you are one with the Lord, people are going to find you intimidating sometimes. It's just the way that it's going to be, because they're not intimidated by what you are. They're intimidated by who you are connected to. They don't always know that. This is subconscious. But they're intimidated by the light of Christ within you. They're intimidated by the light of God radiating and beaming from your soul and your spirit, because you have this high potency to give them an elevated experience at every turn. You don't even have to try. That's what's so crazy, is you don't even have to try to give them an elevated experience. You just do. You just do give people elevated experiences because of who you are and who you're grounded in and with. You know what's really cool? Loyal people. Sometimes the most loyal people that you have in your life, they're not going to be very many, likely. In my experience, it's very few and far and in between. But what I will say is this, is that the people that are loyal, they're going to see your enigmaticness. Is that even a word? But it's like the quality of being enigmatic, right? They're going to see your quality of being enigmatic, and they're going to still follow you. They're still going to admire you. They're still going to revere you and respect you. I don't necessarily want to be feared, but sometimes if you're not feared, you don't have power in the world. In the Prince class series that we're talking about in the Regal Change Academy right now, one of the first classes we had on this topic, which ends in a couple weeks here actually, but one of the first classes that we had in this limited available class was that if somebody fears disrespecting you, you have power. But if somebody just feels bad about hurting your feelings, that means they respect you. Now, me personally, I would rather have a bit of both, just because that's who I would want to be. I would want to be respected, but I also know that my enemies would need to fear me a little bit. And in order for my enemies to fear me, there has to be a healthy form of fear from the people that follow me. And if you want to be the king or the queen, like if you want to manifest that archetype in your life, you have to understand this as well. But it's not about fear of punishment always. It's about fear of loss. You have to inspire some kind of fear of loss or some kind of fear in them. And it's not, and I'm not trying to say like, hey, go out and inspire fear for everybody, like, because, you just need to be you need to be that tough person. It's not what I'm saying. Again, with the enigmatic stuff, you can speak as plainly and straightforward as possible, and people will still find some reason to misinterpret it. But that's the thing, though, is you're operating on a level very few can comprehend. It's just a fact. It's not because you're better than these people. It's not because they're worse than you or anything like that. It's just that when you are more aware, you start to see not only the reality, but the reality behind the reality, like the metaphysics of the reality, on top of the spirituality of what's happening in the metaphysics of reality. Certain things that happen in your life pop up as symbols, or their synchronicities and whatnot. These are just things that you need to be aware of, and then you have to understand going forward. But anyways, guys, I think that I've gotten everything that I want to say said in this video. Don't take it personally. Don't take this being intimidating personally. And don't thrive on it either. Don't like get high off of it. I don't think that's appropriate either. Because some people do get high off of being intimidating. And they'll claim that they don't. But I think some people do, because especially if they've never had power before, beware of the person that has power but has never had it before, because they're usually the ones most careless with it. They don't know how to harness that power. Like, you know the difference between a man, for example, who is grounded in his center and has his masculinity on point. You can tell he's very powerful, but he's not a beast with it. He has it under control. That's the kind of power you want. Not the kind of power that just destroys, and it's like untamed power. That's not good. That's not really good either, because that power can consume you. But you take this for what it is, and live your life on your terms, right? Be who you want to be, say what you want to say, and live your life. I am hosting a free Godlike Mastery Initiation call. It's going to be more of a class on Saturday this week at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this will be going over the fundamental basic principles of developing your physical health, your emotional and intellectual health, and your spiritual health, so that you can stay aligned. Because the people that I've seen that are most godlike are always staying to the fundamentals and the principles that are foundational to where they are at. Man, there's a lot of like beeping or something going on now. It's kind of thrown me off a little bit, but I don't know if you guys can hear that on the camera or not. But anyways, I hope that everybody stays blessed out there and has a peaceful day, and peace be with you all. Until next time.